Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the life you're living is not the result of some big decision you made yesterday, but the accumulation of tiny, unconscious choices you've been repeating for years. Imagine discovering that the very things holding you back aren't the storms outside of you, but the patterns within you. That thought alone should stop you in your tracks, because it means your future isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for you to wake up and take control of your habits. The truth is, most people are not in control of their habits. Their habits are in control of them. They wake up at the same time, rush through the same morning routine, complain about the same problems, and wonder why nothing changes. They don't realize that their life is not being shaped by luck or chance, but by repetition. What they consistently do without thinking. And here's the most important part. You can't change what you don't first notice. Awareness is the first step to change. And without it, you're like a pilot flying a plane blindfolded, hoping to land somewhere safe. Think about it. When was the last time you actually paid attention to your daily behaviors? How often do you stop and ask yourself why you do what you do? Most people never question their routines because habits feel automatic. But that's the danger. When something feels automatic, you stop challenging it. And that's exactly how you get trapped. The scroll through social media that you promised would be just 5 minutes suddenly turns into an hour. The snack you told yourself was harmless becomes a pattern of unhealthy eating. The negative thought you brush off as just how I am becomes a belief that shapes your entire identity. If you want to take back control, the very first thing you must do is shine a light on the patterns you've been ignoring. Awareness is not about judging yourself or feeling guilty. It's about observing with honesty. It's like holding up a mirror and saying, "This is what I do every day. This is what I say to myself. This is where I spend my time." When you see it clearly, you create the space to make a different choice. Now, some of you might be thinking, "But I already know my habits." Let me challenge you. Do you really? Because knowing isn't the same as noticing. You may know you procrastinate, but do you notice the exact moment when you choose distraction over discipline? You may know you eat junk food, but do you notice the emotions or triggers that lead to that choice? Real awareness means you catch yourself in the act. You see not just the surface habit, but the deeper pattern driving it. That's the key. Once you become aware, everything changes. It's like flipping on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see the obstacles, the mess, and the opportunities. And the moment you see clearly, you gain back your power. Because here's the truth. The simple act of noticing interrupts the autopilot. When you're no longer unconscious, you have the ability to decide, and decisions are where change begins. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who wants to wake up earlier. They set alarms, they buy planners, they read articles on productivity. But every morning they hit snooze. Why? Because they never took the time to notice the real habit driving their behavior. Maybe it's not laziness. Maybe it's the habit of going to bed too late scrolling on their phone until fun AM. Maybe it's the habit of telling themselves, I'll start tomorrow. Every single night. Until they become aware of the root habit, no strategy will work. But the moment they notice it, truly notice, it opens the door to change. Awareness also brings responsibility. You can no longer claim ignorance once you've seen the truth about your habits. That can feel uncomfortable at first because it forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you want to be. But don't run from that discomfort. Lean into it. That gap is the birthplace of growth. And the beautiful thing is, once you see it, you can close it. Here's the power in this: the more aware you become, the more control you gain over your life. When you notice that you're about to speak negatively to yourself, you can choose a different inner dialogue. When you notice that you're reaching for your phone out of boredom, you can choose to stand up and move your body. Instead, when you notice that you're about to give in to an old pattern, you can pause, breathe, and decide differently. That pause, that moment of awareness, is the crack in the old pattern where transformation enters. I want you to ask yourself a question right now. What habit in your life has been silently controlling you? What pattern has been stealing your energy, your focus, your potential? Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just notice it. Because the moment you see it for what it is, you've already taken the first and most powerful step toward change. Let me tell you something powerful. Awareness is not a one-time event. It's a practice. You don't just notice once and expect transformation. You notice again and again until noticing becomes natural. And the more you practice awareness, the more you catch yourself in those crucial moments where your future is being decided. Every single time you notice, you weaken the grip of the old habit and strengthen the power of your choice. This is where your life starts to change. Not in the giant, dramatic breakthroughs, but in the quiet, consistent moments when you choose differently because you finally saw the pattern. That's what separates people who drift through life from people who design their destiny. So remember this: you cannot control what you refuse to acknowledge. Your life will either be shaped by unconscious repetition, by conscious choice. The decision is yours. The first step to controlling your habits, the foundation of everything else, is awareness. Because once you see the pattern, you can change the pattern. And once you change the pattern, you change your life. What if I told you that the future you dream of is not going to be built by some massive breakthrough, not by one lucky moment, not by some miracle that drops out of the sky, but by the tiniest choices you make every single day? That should stop you, because it means your destiny is not waiting in the distance. It's happening right now in the small, ordinary decisions you think don't matter. We all want big results. We all want transformation, success, happiness, freedom. But here's the trap. Most people believe those things come from giant leaps. They think one day, everything will change. They'll get the opportunity of a lifetime. They'll make the perfect move. They'll find the magic formula. But that's not how life works. Life is built on compounding, And compounding doesn't care about one dramatic decision. It cares about what you consistently do, day after day, moment after moment. Think about water dripping onto a rock. One drop doesn't change anything. 10 drops don't change anything. But over years, over time, that steady dripping carves into stone. That's the power of small choices. They don't look powerful in the moment, but their impact multiplies. And the difference between someone who ends up fulfilled and someone who ends up frustrated is often just the accumulation of those small, unseen choices repeated over time. Most people underestimate the weight of small actions. They tell themselves, it's just one cigarette. It's just one skipped workout. It's just one day of procrastination. But those just ones are never just ones. They stack, they add up, they form the pattern of your life. On the other side, the same is true. It's just one healthy meal. It's just one chapter read. It's just one moment of gratitude. But those small acts build momentum. And momentum is what carries you to success. Here's the truth. You don't decide your future. You decide your habits. And your habits decide your future. That's why small choices matter so much. Because every choice is a vote for the person you're becoming. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to win every time. But every choice tilts the scale. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're casting a vote for the future you want. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you're building evidence that you're the kind of person who changes. The danger is that small choices are easy to overlook because they feel insignificant in the moment. Eating that slice of cake doesn't make you overweight instantly. Skipping the gym once doesn't destroy your health, but stacked over time, those choices define everything. On the flip side, reading 10 pages of a book doesn't make you a genius in a day. Practicing gratitude tonight doesn't transform your mindset overnight. But compounded over months and years, those little steps create transformation that looks like magic from the outside. This is why you must train yourself to value consistency over intensity. Anyone can get motivated for one big burst. Anyone can sprint for a few days. But can you show up, even in small ways, again and again? That's where the real change lies, because success is never about what you do once. It's about what you repeat. Now let me ask you something. What are the tiny decisions you're making each day without even realizing it? Are you reaching for your phone first thing in the morning instead of setting an intention for your day? Are you choosing fast food instead of fueling your body with energy? Are you letting one negative thought spiral into an entire mood that ruins your focus? These are small choices, yes, but they shape the direction of your life like a compass. And the scary part is, most people don't even realize they're making them. The beautiful part is, the power works both ways. Just as negative habits compound, so do positive ones. If you choose to wake up 15 minutes earlier and spend that time journaling or meditating, that's not just 15 minutes. It's rewiring your brain for clarity. If you choose to replace one sugary drink with water every day, that's not just one decision. It's hundreds of calories avoided. energy restored, health improved over time. If you choose to invest 10 minutes a day, learning a new skill, that's not just 10 minutes. It's hours of growth, stacked month after month, until one day you're the person others look at and call talented or lucky. This is the game of life. It's not won in giant leaps, it's won in the small, invisible battles no one else sees. The battles with your own habits, your own excuses, your own choices. And the best part is, you don't need to wait for some perfect moment to start. You don't need to change everything overnight. All you need is to begin with one small choice today, then repeat it tomorrow, and again the next day. That's how momentum is built. That's how transformation becomes inevitable. You might be asking, but what if I slip up? What if I miss a day? Let me tell you something. It's not about perfection. It's about direction. One mistake doesn't erase the progress you've made. What matters is what you consistently return to. If you keep casting votes for the person you want to become, eventually, that identity becomes yours. So I want you to think right now, what is one small habit, one small choice, that if repeated daily, would completely change your life over the next year? Don't think of something grand. Think of something doable, simple, almost so small it feels insignificant. Because it's those small choices, done consistently, that build massive results. Never underestimate the power of what looks ordinary. Extraordinary lives are built on ordinary decisions repeated with consistency. You don't need a giant leap. You just need to keep stepping, one small choice at a time. Let me ask you a question that should stop you for a moment. How many times have you tried to break a bad habit by simply telling yourself, I'm done with this, only to find yourself falling back into it days, sometimes even hours later? You see, here's the problem. Habits don't just disappear because you want them to. Your brain doesn't like empty space. If you rip something out of your routine without putting something better in its place, your mind will find a way to drag you back to the old behavior. That's why most people fail when they try to change. They focus on removing, but they forget the real key: replacing. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a chair in the middle of your living room. You decide you don't like that chair anymore. You pick it up, take it outside, and leave the space empty. What happens the next time someone walks into the room? They notice the empty space. They might even say, something's missing here. And eventually, you'll feel the urge to fill it with something. Maybe even bring the old chair back in. That's exactly what happens with habits. You can't just take one away. You've got to put something else in that space. Something that serves you instead of sabotages you. Here's the truth: bad habits aren't random. They serve a purpose. They meet a need, even if it's in a destructive way. Overeating meets the need for comfort. Scrolling on your phone meets the need for distraction. Complaining meets the need for significance or connection. If you only remove the habit without addressing the need, your brain will find another way, often an even worse way, to fill the gap. But when you replace the habit with a healthier one that meets the same need, That's when transformation becomes sustainable. Let's make this real. Say every night you unwind by binge, watching shows until you fall asleep. You realize this is stealing your energy, your sleep, your productivity. If you just cut it off and say, no more TV at night, you're going to feel restless, even anxious. Why? Because your brain was using that habit as a way to relax. If you don't replace it, the pressure will build, and sooner or later, you'll fall back into the same cycle. But if you say, instead of TV, I'm going to spend 30 minutes reading or journaling, you're still giving your mind the relaxation it craves, but in a way that feeds your growth instead of drains it. This is the difference between fighting your habits and transforming them. When you fight, you're at war with yourself, constantly battling urges, willpower, and temptation. That's exhausting. But when you replace, you align your habits with your needs. You give yourself a new pattern to follow, one that feels just as rewarding but produces better results. That's when change sticks. Most people think breaking habits is about discipline. But discipline alone is not enough. Discipline will get you started, but replacement is what keeps you going. It's about designing your environment and your routines so that the positive habit naturally takes the place of the old one. When you do this, change no longer feels like a constant struggle. It starts to feel natural. Let me share another example. Imagine someone who struggles with negative self-talk. Every time they make a mistake, they say, I'm stupid, or I'll never get this right. If they just try to stop that thought, silence it, push it away, it won't work. The brain hates silence. It craves language. If you don't replace that thought, another negative one will sneak in. But if every time they catch themselves, they replace it with, I'm learning, or I'm getting stronger through this. Now they've taken the same trigger, making a mistake, and given it a new, empowering response. That's the power of replacement. So the question becomes, what are you willing to replace? What habit in your life is stealing your energy, your focus, your potential? And more importantly, what habit can you consciously choose to put in its place? Because the moment you identify that, you stop living in reaction and start living in design. You stop being controlled by old patterns and start creating new ones. Now, don't misunderstand me. This is not about perfection. You're not going to replace every habit flawlessly on the first try. There will be times when the old pattern creeps back in. That's normal. But every time you practice the replacement, you're strengthening a new neural pathway in your brain. Over time, the new habit becomes easier, the old one weaker, until eventually it flips. What used to feel automatic becomes unnatural, and what used to feel unnatural becomes automatic. That's the rewiring of your life. I want you to really feel this. You are not powerless against your habits. You are the designer of your behaviors. But design doesn't happen by subtraction alone. It happens by creation. You can't just pull weeds out of a garden. You've got to plant flowers in their place. You can't just tell yourself, don't think of a pink elephant. The brain doesn't work with absence. It works with presence. Give it something to focus on, something to pursue, something to build. And here's the beautiful part. When you begin replacing bad habits with empowering ones, it doesn't just change your actions. It changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's constantly trying to quit or avoid. You start seeing yourself as someone who creates, who builds, who grows. And when your identity shifts, your destiny shifts. So I'll leave you with this. Don't just remove what's not working in your life. Replace it with something that builds you, strengthens you, and aligns with the future you want to create. Because it's not the absence of bad habits that creates success. It's the presence of empowering ones that transform your life. Let me grab your attention. With this, your habits are not just routines, they are votes for your destiny. Every action you repeat, no matter how small, is quietly shaping the person you are becoming. And here's the hard truth. Your destiny is not decided in the future. It's decided today in the discipline you bring to the smallest details of your life. If you can't control your habits, you can't control your future. That's how powerful this really is. Discipline is the bridge between the life you want and the life you're living right now. Most people think destiny is about chance or about some great opportunity that will show up one day. They think success is about being in the right place at the right time or knowing the right people, but that's not what truly shapes destiny. Destiny is not written in the stars. It's written in your habits, and discipline is the pen. Without discipline, habits stay weak, inconsistent, and random. With discipline, habits become powerful, structured, and transformational. Think about anyone who has achieved greatness in any area, whether it's business, health, relationships, or personal mastery. Do you think they got there by occasional bursts of motivation? Do you think they relied on luck or waited for inspiration? No. They built their life through consistent discipline. They did the things most people weren't willing to do. Not once, but over and over, until those behaviors became automatic. And because of that, their habits forged their character, and their character forged their destiny. Here's the mistake most people make. They rely on motivation. They say, I'll work out when I feel like it. I'll write when I feel inspired. I'll save money when I'm in the mood. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. If your life depends on motivation, you'll always be inconsistent. Discipline is different. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline asks, what's the standard you've set for your life, and are you willing to live up to it? That's what creates real transformation. Now, discipline doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you never fall, never miss, never fail. Discipline means you decide in advance who you want to be and what habits align with that identity. And then you commit to showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because the discomfort is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're growing. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who wants to write a book. They say, when I get inspired, I'll sit down and write. But weeks go by and inspiration doesn't show up. Another person says, every morning, I will write for 1 hour, no matter what. At first, it feels hard. Some days the words don't flow. Some days the work feels pointless. But day after day, they show up. What happens? Discipline transforms into habit. Habit builds momentum, and momentum eventually produces a finished book. That's the difference between a dreamer and a doer. Discipline. Discipline is also what keeps your identity aligned with your actions. You can say, I want to be healthy. But if your habits say otherwise, that identity will collapse. You can say, I want to be successful. But if your habits are lazy and distracted, you're lying to yourself. Discipline is the bridge that connects what you say you want with how you actually live. And when your words and your actions match, your life gains power. The truth is, discipline is freedom. People think discipline is restriction, that it limits your choices. But undisciplined living is what actually traps you. If you're undisciplined with your money, you end up in debt. If you're undisciplined with your health, you end up in pain. If you're undisciplined with your time, you end up wasting your life. Discipline doesn't limit you. It liberates you. It gives you the ability to create, to expand, to live fully. Because once you're in control of your habits, you're no longer a prisoner to impulses, distractions, or weaknesses. Here's something most people never realize: discipline compounds. Just like small habits compound into results, small acts of discipline compound into strength. Every time you say no to a temptation and yes to your standard, you're building the muscle of discipline. Every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who can be trusted to keep their word. Over time, this becomes who you are. And that identity is what carries you forward when challenges come. I want you to imagine this. Picture two versions of yourself 10 years from now. One is disciplined, consistent, and intentional with their habits. The other is impulsive, inconsistent, and careless with their routines. Which version has the life you want? Which version is living in alignment with your potential? The answer is obvious. The disciplined version of you is the one who wins. But that version is not built in 10 years. It's built right now, in the choices you're making today. The beautiful thing is, discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you train. It's like a muscle. You strengthen it by using it. The first time you push yourself to keep a promise to yourself, it's hard. The 10th time, it's easier. The 100th time, it's automatic. And once it's automatic, it's no longer just discipline, it's destiny. Because the habits that once required effort now define who you are. So I'll leave you with this. Your destiny isn't written somewhere out there, waiting for you to discover it. It's being written right now in the habits you practice and the discipline you bring to your life. The question is, are you letting your habits control you? Or are you controlling them? Because in the end, your habits don't just shape your days, they shape your character. And your character shapes your destiny.